Hey, what's going on? It's your tech homeboy coming to you live from Dallas, Fort Worth. Everyone is talking about Dallas right now because Keith Lee is trying out all the restaurants. We're going to talk about Keith Lee for a bit, and most importantly, some of the lessons we can learn about Keith Lee. Come on. All right. Who is Keith Lee? Well, he is a former mixed martial artist. You know, he does the grappling and the kicking and the punching and stuff. Most of you have never heard of him because he mostly fought on Bellator, which is a lower level mixed martial arts kind of institution. Most of you are familiar with UFC. All the fighters in UFC, you know, like Anderson Silva, the other Irish guy, I can't think of his name, who fought Mayweather, John Jones, you know, a lot of the other guys, you know, and the two twins, the Ruiz twins, I think they're called, who fought one of the Paul brothers. So a lot of you know the more popular UFC fighters, but he was a Bellator fighter, and his last fight was September 22. And in the last 7 months, he's been touring around the country. It's called the Keith Lee Family Food Tour. He's been touring around the country, trying out all the different food places, and he's most gained his popularity through TikTok, right? Big surprise there. So how did this MMA guy go from MMA to reinventing himself? That's what we're going to talk about today. How can you reinvent yourself? How can you kind of get out that cast that people identify you as? How can you get out that box that so many people around you usually put you in, that I'm sure Keith Lee dealt with? All right. So Keith Lee came to Dallas and he tried a lot of the foods out here. And to my understanding, he tried the food that our most preeminent newspaper suggested, Dallas Morning News. They said, hey, you should try these food places. And there was a lot of backlash about the food places. They suggested about 20 places. And the reaction to the places was interesting. And I'm sure this happened in your city too, but in Dallas, it really unearthed that divide amongst the classes, and definitely that racial divide too. Of course, I follow Black Twitter, Black Facebook. Everyone was like, you know, I've never heard of these places. These places are nasty. Why would you even go to these places? And it's interesting because, it shows that racial divide in the city, in the metroplex, that there's so many spaces where you don't even see Black people. So I think Dallas Morning News, who better to highlight that racial and class divide and that disconnect of where are the best places to eat and where certain people congregate and where certain people socialize. So that was an extremely interesting aspect. But another aspect is, and things that you can take away from it, beyond all the back and forth about the best restaurants and, you know, the racial divide and, you know, what is real barbecue. You know, really the best thing you and I can take away from this is how he was able to reinvent himself from MMA artist to mixed martial artist to now food critic. Now, before we get into some lessons we can take away, make sure you like, share, subscribe this, share this to all your friends. Make sure you leave a comment about what you think about the Dallas Morning News restaurant list. If you've been to some of those places, I've been to like Maple and Motor is the first place I can think on my mind. Taqueria La Ventana, I've been to. Even better, that was left off the list to me, was Mesa Maya, which is right next to Taqueria La Ventana. But nonetheless, like, share, subscribe, guys. So, some lessons, right? There are so many excuses he could have given himself, and so many excuses we give ourselves daily, nightly, monthly, annually. There's so many excuses, negative energy that we receive from other people, that we develop ourselves, that we feed into ourselves, and it stops us from accomplishing so much. The first one I can think of is, who cares what a martial artist thinks? If you're not a martial artist, you can think of your own craft. Who cares what some basketball player who failed D1 or D2 college thinks? There's a lot of people I follow on Instagram, and I'm sure you follow them too, who are basketball commentators. They create basketball podcasts, and they didn't even make it to D1, and they still are selling merch. People are still tuning in. They have basketball training programs, and there's just so many obstacles and blockers that we put in our mind that we have opportunity to listen to or ignore daily. And like I said, there's so much content that we are consuming online for people who are considered failures, but decided to step out and offer us this great content. So it's someone like Keith Lee, someone who wasn't a highly successful martial artist, he still did not block himself or make that excuse about who cares what someone thinks about what I think about food, right? He did not let that to be a blocker. He still put his best foot forward, spent the time, spent the money, did the grind to get out there and get his name known and become a social authority on food. Another excuse he could have given himself: I'm too old to try something new. All right, a lot of us are in our mid-30s or in our early 40s, and we're looking to try something different, something new. And we think what people have associated us with previously, or what's our current career, we think that we are too old to move on to try something new. And he did not think that. He's found himself a different career, a different path, something that maybe he never even thought of. And he went on to accomplish this venture. So age should not be a factor for you. He did not see himself as too old. Maybe on the flip side, you may think you are too young to try something new. You are not too old, you are not too young. Do not let that negative voice creep into your head. All right, lesson number 3. I'm willing to try something new, but I don't want to grind till I'm at the top. I speak to a lot of people who want to transition into technology, who want to get into IT. They want their very first job to be 6 figures, laying on the couch. That is what they desire, that's what they want. And someone told them that's possible. And it is possible, but you might have to put in some time before you get there. You might not get that as your entry-level job. You might not. If you are accomplished in your current career, I speak to a lot of people who are military veterans like myself. You may be a staff sergeant or gunnery sergeant, and you say you've put in 12 years in the military. You don't want to get out and have to kind of go through the ranks again to get to that level where you want to be at. So you said, I'm just going to spend another 8 years in the military and retire. Instead of, kind of taking that risk of going out, making 50K, making 70, then making 120K in your tech career after 3 to 4 years. Same for you. I speak to, again, people who want to transition to tech. They've been in their career 10 years. They kind of don't want to either go back to getting potentially paid 60, 70K, or they don't want to kind of go through the rank again and having to level and rank up in the tech world. So a lot of times we put so much value on past accomplishments that we aren't willing to see what our potential accomplishments can reach. So do not put that box on yourself. Congratulations to you, Keith Lee, for not allowing that to happen. I've already succeeded in one thing. I don't have the effort to try to succeed in another thing. It is similar to the previous lesson. You might have succeeded in one thing. You don't want to go on to succeed in another thing. You're not willing to put in the work. You don't maybe have the energy. And I talk to people a lot who have that mindset. Another excuse. Everyone knows me as a martial artist only. Okay? Everyone knows you as a martial artist. Everyone knows you as a teacher. Everyone knows you as a coach. Everyone knows you as, an infantry person, okay? Who will even care about me in these other fields? Who will listen to my voice? How can I become an authority in these other fields? So many of us beat ourselves up with negative thoughts daily. We think that there is only one way people can identify us. If you are a procrastinator, everyone knows I'm late anyway, so I might as well come late. Everyone thinks I'm gonna come late. If you are an aggressive person, well, I'm gonna be aggressive because, y'all already think I'm bad anyway, so I might as well just live up to it. So many of us we're just stuck in this cast that we feel like we either have to live up to it or we feel like we don't have the energy to get out of it, but you do. And again, you can be whoever you create yourself to be. Who you are is backed by your thoughts, it's backed by your actions. That is who you ultimately are, your thoughts and your actions. So if you change your thoughts and you change your actions, I guarantee people will change the way you are perceived. Or rather, I guarantee people will change the way they perceive you, okay? And the very last thing, very last lesson I can learn, and many of you can learn, is that Keith Lee is a black man, all right? He's a black man. He didn't use the excuse of, oh, I'm a black man who's a martial artist, I'm blocked in, no one's gonna care, oh, I'm not gonna be able to reach a certain demographic. As he's a black man trying out food, he's not only trying out black restaurants, right? I mean, if you have Dallas Morning News recommended places, you are not considered a black food critic. You have reached several demographics now. So, regardless of what he may thought he saw himself as, what certain people might see you as, he broke out of that box, okay? I remember I've done a few stand-ups back in the day, and I know some people who are like, man, I don't want to be considered a black comic. So they make sure they stay away from certain content, and they make sure they have a certain delivery. Okay, so Keith Lee did not use the excuse that he was a black man, that he's boxed in, that someone's going to stop him, that he can only, only certain people will care about his feedback on food. He did not use that as an excuse or as a crutch to block him in. So there's so many lessons and more. I would love to see a comment about, I would love to see you leave a comment about what lessons you learned from him, ways that you've reinvented yourself, or maybe even a comment about blockers you think you have that's preventing you from reinventing yourself or preventing people from seeing you another way. I would love to see your comment. All right, y'all. Make sure you leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. It's your Tech Homeboy. Make sure you check out some of the links in the description. I have some cool links in the description. Leave them. Peace, y'all.